All right, we are live. Hello and welcome to the AI industry discussions, where we dive into how data science and applied AI is driving innovation across a range of different industries. So hosting today is me, Anna. I am a business developer at Peltarion, and co-hosting together with me, we have Björn, who is delivery lead for our expert services and keeps an ear to the pulse of all client projects, which gives him a very interesting perspective on basically everything we do. Thank you so much for joining us, Björn.
It's great to be here.
Yeah, and our guest today is Nasim Farahini, who is CTO in AI, IoT and Cloud at Quamcom, a specialty software provider that brings AI and other software solutions into the real world, which, as we know, is where the value of these technologies is actually created. So Nasim, thank you so much for joining us. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do at Quamcom?
Sure. Hi, everyone, and thanks for having me here. Thanks for the introduction. I'm Nasim Farahini. I'm CTO in AI, IoT, and Cloud at Qamcom Research and Technology. For those who do not know much about Qamcom, Qamcom is basically an advanced technology house where we provide our customers with specialist consultancy services. We typically, in many cases, we develop end-to-end software, hardware, system solutions for various industrial applications. And we are there together with our customers from ideation, feasibility study, and even research phase through architecture development and implementation, all the way to even certification and productification. We have been involved in many industrial AI applications because our approach to AI is also from an industrial and system perspective, where we don't look at AI just as a module that implements machine learning or deep learning, but rather as a system where it typically starts from in industrial context, it typically starts from where data acquisition happens, where sensors are sitting at the edge of the network, and then where processing of the signals that are coming from sensors are happening, communication, data pipelines, all the way to cloud. So we look at it like an end-to-end system from edge to cloud. And I guess that's something that I will expand on a bit today.
Very super interesting field. And I think a lot of people probably have, maybe a little hard time to grasp, what is an end-to-end system and how does AI fit into that? Would you have sort of an example of an end-to-end system and, the components of this?
Yes, absolutely. I can start with some examples of projects that we have been working with, and then probably one or two of them try to expand a bit. One of the projects that we have been working on have been designing a multifunction sensor system for a smart city and for smart traffic control at crossings. This system consists of a camera as the sensor, as the main sensor, and a processing unit that sits together with camera at the crossing, or in the other word, the edge computing unit. And then the communication and data pipelines all the way to cloud, where the processing of aggregated data is happening. So main decision making is happening at a local server at the crossing, where based on real-time video analysis that is powered by AI techniques, it identifies if and what type of objects are at every lanes in the crossing, and based on that sends a control signal to control the traffic light. This is one of the examples. We have also developed digital inspection systems based on drone technologies. And some of the applications that we have used it for is, for example, for power line inspection. We have done this project together with Vattenfall, where we use a drone to identify if at some places there are some anomalies or if there are some failures or problems with power line, and also identify risk of high vegetations that are in the surrounding. Another example is using the same digital inspection or drone technology to detect and classify and count farm animals. That's for daily surveillance. And so, yeah, that's a very interesting application. And again, it's like starts from drone and the camera that is located on drone, and how and what type of, basically one of the trade-offs is really what where should we put the intelligence, on drone or on local servers or on cloud, and how does this impact the cost overall? Again, so this is like an example of kind of an edge to cloud kind of system.
Yeah, super interesting. The whole IoT domain is super interesting. Just want to ask you a couple of questions on the first example.
Yes.
Would you do? I mean, the multifunctional sensors. Would they have any sort of fine tuning or individual training on edge, or is it just sort of inferring on edge?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So we have trained this model with millions of data. So with a lot of data, and we have collected data from, we have used the open source data, and also like we have collected data for training this module. So when we move this module for inference at the edge at different crossings, it performs typically well as it is, but we still need to do some fine tuning of parameters, where, for example, some calibration and also fine tuning of parameters to make the performance better. And at the same time, we try to continue collecting data, of course, where we have permission to do that, to continue collecting data as system is deployed to further improve the model and for further trainings.
Interesting. And then on the sort of the drone aspect, that is also edge devices, not only collecting data on the camera, but actually having edge AI on the drones.
Yeah. So that project has been very interesting, and that actually opens up the discussion on like how do we optimize end-to-end system, for example, for one of the factors which is common in all industrial applications is cost. How do we optimize a system for cost? And this project has been one of the examples and shows the system level trade-offs very well. If we put the entire algorithm or the classification algorithm on a drone, it will be power hungry, and drone runs out of battery very quickly. And on the other hand, if we start collecting all the data that is captured and communicate all that, the communication will be expensive. And also, again, like there will be a lot of unnecessary data, unuseful data that we have to pay for processing and for storage. But what we have done is that we have put a lightweight model, AI model, on drone, so that identifies only what images are relevant images, and only stores them, and only communicates those ones to the local servers or cloud. So this way we reduce, as we optimize system for power, and also we optimize it for cost.
And it's a super clever way to get, the best out of both worlds, really.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
So we'll talk a little bit more about your work. I just want to ask you, because I noticed that you're also active within the IEEE.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right.
What part are sort of how is AI discussed, within the IEEE?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think AI is now at the top of the list of like hot topics in various organizations and associations, including IEEE. Um, IEEE also considers AI as I think it looks at it more from domain perspective and how AI impacts each of these domains. For example, communication. For example, IoT and cloud. For example, so it's like you would see that AI is everywhere in all these chapters that are there in as part of IEEE. So we have a lot of active discussions in Sweden and internationally about AI and also its implications from societal and cultural perspective, and also how it impacts how it can be used for good of humanity, and the other way around.
Thank you. Yeah. That's super interesting. Super interesting.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that ties in very nicely to something you mentioned that I found very interesting when we spoke the first time, which was about this how a lot of the hype and a lot of the discussion around AI has been about these more philosophical aspects of it, and how that can sometimes make it difficult to get down to the concrete problem that customers want to solve, and can sort of you can get caught in this other aspect of it. Of the discussion, and I was just curious to hear: is that still the case? Do you find, and if so, how does that affect the types of conversations that you're able to have and with certain customers?
Yes, absolutely. In many cases, we hear from our customers that well, they would love to do something with AI. But not sure. I mean, they know that AI can bring a lot of benefits and can have impact on their industry, but how? And so this is the first first type of discussion that we typically have with our customers, to understand, to discuss about their domain knowledge, about their domain industry and domain knowledge, and how AI can apply to their domain. Sometimes the problems that we are given to solve, we can easily solve it with traditional signal processing or image processing without any problem, and with much less complication than AI. And this is what we really discuss and talk about with our customers. AI today for us at Qamcom is basically another tool in our toolbox, where we try to solve problems as needed. Sometimes to enhance the existing solutions, and sometimes to solve new types of solutions. But I wouldn't say that it solves all the problems.
No, it's easy. It's easy to be a AI enthusiastic and think that everything should have an AI solution.
Yes.
I was thinking about the projects you mentioned. I mean, the end-to-end solutions that you actually build. I mean, these are real, digital and mechanical devices out among people. So there has to be a lot of, discussions around safety,
Absolutely.
interact with human beings. Do you have any sort of examples of how you discuss in terms of safety within these projects?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. I mean, safety is a very important aspect when it comes to industrial systems, especially the ones that the decision that is made or the action that is taken has physical consequences. And somehow, when it comes to deployment of AI in industrial context, it makes it a bit challenging because of the black box nature of AI. But we have been working a lot with it. At Qamcom, we have a large team of safety experts that are working on different aspects of it. And actually, when we start thinking about designing a system, we involve a safety architect from the beginning to be with us and to help us to ground up, put safety considerations into the architecture. And we don't look at it like an afterthought. So first rule is really we have to design our system for safe failure in case that it fails. But from AI perspective, what we need to do is that we have to closely and constantly monitor AI module. And one of the important metrics that we consider is confidence score. So it's important that we identify the cases where AI output is not valid. Typically, machine learning modules, they perform very well in the boundaries of the data that they are trained with. But when they are exposed to a new scenario or new scene, the output might not be as accurate or relevant. So important thing is really to first identify when those cases are happening. So basically, we use statistical models for uncertainty estimation to calculate the confidence score. So basically, we know when AI module is confident about the decision that is made or about the prediction that is made. And when there is the confidence score is low, we either disregard the output or we try to, in case of autonomous systems, we try to safely recover from a bad state that system has got into. Or in some cases, make sure that that the module asks for human intervention.
All right. So you basically measure this metric first when you deploy, sort of for the first time, and you can compare towards sort of real data, and then you continue to measure this over time, so you can actually see when it starts to sort of derail.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. I love this concept of sort of safe failure.
Yes, that's right. So, for example, one of the examples in our smart city project, it is considered a safety critical system because it controls traffic light, and if it makes any failure, it might end up in accidents or crashes. And AI modules typically, it's very interesting to understand what could be source of faults or errors in AI modules. For example, in the case of the Smart City project, most of the data that we trained our algorithm with, they are either bicycles or motorcycles, meaning like a two-wheel vehicles, and four-wheel vehicles like trucks and cars, and pedestrians. But when we were testing our system, we realized that there is a three-wheel vehicle standing in one of the lanes in the crossing, and the model is failing to detecting that module. So another technique that we are using to add to the safety and reliability of AI-based systems is that we use other traditional algorithms to oversee AI module. So what we do is we use another module that is working with traditional image processing that identifies if there is any object in the crossing. And then if this output agrees with what AI module is detecting, and if not, then it raises the issue or it overrides the output of the AI module. And that's interesting because we also use this technique to identify which data is new for our AI module, and we use it. We store them for later, and training our module further with those data.
All right, interesting. I mean, it's obvious you can do this because AI is just one of your tools.
Yes,
So
exactly.
You can pick and mix the best set of tools.
Yeah, and that's a good point that you're mentioning. When we are discussing about AI in industrial context, it's important that in the team we have not only AI and machine learning experts, but also people who understand communication, safety, and software design, cloud, and system level trade-offs. This is very important to be able to put together a functional, safe, reliable, and optimized and efficient system.
That's really interesting, and you obviously you have such a breadth of experience when it comes to these systems, and it makes me think, like, to what extent are you helping customers define their problem versus, you know, helping them implement what they want? Does it very often fall on one of those two sides?
Yeah, as I mentioned, we typically, the case is that customers come with us and they ask for adding a functionality to an existing system or to develop a new system. And we typically allocate a team to this customer, and we start with them from ideation phase to understand the problem, to recommend them with best tools and techniques that can solve their problem. And AI might be one of them, it might not be one. And then we help them to formulate the idea. So we start typically with the feasibility study phase, which involves research and some brainstorming, understanding domain knowledge from the customer, because that's what they know the best. And we know the technology, we know techniques. So we put all this input together to try to design best system possible.
All right. I mean, it's fascinating. I mean, your work and the things that you've done spans such a large range. Actually, I mean, you've been working with the telescopes and space and telecoms and AI and machine learning and not to mention a lot of years in electrical engineering studying.
Yes, so, absolutely.
At all of this, which would have been sort of the most exciting project?
Oh, that's hard to say. That's hard to say, but and each of these problems, they come with their own specific challenge, which makes it very interesting. Yeah, so we work with, as I mentioned, like a smart city project was one of the most interesting ones, because that involved a lot of considerations from technology, and we have been working with Stockholm Stad to enable this technology. There has been a lot of dimensions to it. We also have been working with autonomous systems, automotive industry, where there are LiDAR, camera, and radar sensors involved, sensor fusion, and the considerations there. And safety is functional safety is again a big topic there. We have also been working with enterprise AI. That's a completely different domain, but with another set of interesting challenges.
How would you sort of define enterprise AI in comparison to other AI?
I'm glad you asked that, because I was thinking the same.
So I would categorize this into industrial AI and enterprise AI. Industrial AI is where we deploy AI in industrial context, and we provide complete solutions for an industrial application. And typically, when you look at this large system, you end up AI ends up being a critical module, but small part of it. Enterprise AI is where you use enterprise data, meaning that it impacts the business architecture. So in that context, we help our customers to build a business architecture that allows them to use the power of data and use intelligent workflows. So basically, they can turn data into actionable insights and turn that actionable insight into predictive decisions that they are making, data-driven decisions, and to new business revenue streams. So that is more about like using data for predicting sales and predicting marketing. That soft aspect of the company, I would say.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That's a very interesting distinction as well, because when you say it makes very good sense. I bring us back a little bit to this. Anyone who might be listening who is thinking of starting their digital sort of AI transformation, bringing in, and they're often sort of facing this choice: are they going to bring in experts and set up sort of new teams within the company, or are they going to try to rely on external expertise and then trust that by the end of it they'll be able to run these systems on their own? Like, what would you say are the pros and cons to these different approaches? In-house, building up things from the ground up versus relying on someone else who's external, going for sort of consultancy for a little bit of time, and then weaving that into the business. You obviously come at this with one perspective, but just sort of putting those things alongside each other for a second. And
yeah, right. So I think it's of course important that they try to develop their own internal expertise and core team with the knowledge of AI. But I would say maybe starting with a company who can give them some advice about like how to start and what type of expertise they need when they create that team. That would be very helpful, because otherwise this way they could use some of the experience that similar companies have earned and save some time, basically. But if they start by putting together a team, it might take some time for the team to ramp up, and also start a lot of, they have to start from scratch, basically. So what we have done to help our customers when they come to us with this question of digital transformation, or what we call cognitive transformation, what we help them with is first to help them creating a sustainable ecosystem for this cognitive transformation. And that has several pillars. One of them is technology. And if they put like a team of people with knowledge of AI, one pillar is that one. There's other aspects, and another one is, for example, processes. How can they put the processes together that ensures this cognitive transformation is happening in a smooth way and continuously? The other metric is people and education. Does everybody understand at different levels of company why they have to go through digital transformation or cognitive transformation, and what benefits it is bringing to the company, and what are the essentials? What should they do? What is the journey that they have to go through? The other aspect is incentives and metrics. How do they measure that how they have made progress, and if they have made progress? This is important that you look at it like a sustainable ecosystem. So you start from somewhere and you can measure how far you have come all the way. So you identify the strategy from the beginning to the end, and you are able to measure the progress. We have developed something that is called CMM, or Capability Maturity Model. It identifies several focus areas, including the ones that I mentioned, for example, people and education, data readiness, how they are, is their data ready for cognitive transformation? Is every data digital? Is it linked? Are there information models available? Is metadata available? And some other focus areas. And then first thing that we do together with our customers is to study and understand at what level they are at different in each of these focus areas. Then we define a progress ladder together with them, and a strategy that helps them to go through and make progress in each of these focus areas. So this is how we approach this problem.
Okay. So, a question on that. I mean, I'm kind of a sort of learning by doing person. So if a company sets up on this journey to transform themselves in any way, you know, how much do they have to do before they can sort of, in your, so say, in your vision, when could they start building stuff? How much do they need to learn or do before they can just, you know, start trying things out?
Yes, no, that's very important, and that's very important question, and very interesting actually, because sometimes we shouldn't make this process so complex and time consuming that they have to change a lot and do a lot of stuff before seeing any result. So one of the factors that we consider is that we try to create a narrow pipeline where customer can quickly see some business value. And that's kind of a reward for management level, but also for people who are working in that area. So they start seeing the benefit of why and how this cognitive transformation is helping them. So this is part of the work that we are doing, and the question was right on the spot. So we try to start with one or two examples of departments that they are more ready with data, and they have some problems or business problems to solve with AI, with, for example, inference engines, and we start there to build some examples. That is kind of that helps with encouraging them. Also sets an example of how things should be done.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. You have to sort of do something to find that inspiration and courage, and probably budget as well.
Yes.
To keep on working.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, I think it's also a really interesting way to sort of offer that roadmap, and even if you deliver one component of it, you still leave them with a sort of overview of where to next and what can come after. So that's really interesting, because as you say, these transformations are often very comprehensive in the long run.
Yes, it's a long process, so it's better to break it down into various steps.
Yeah.
Both in terms of focus areas, but also in terms of seeing some business value.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's hugely motivating also for the teams that are going to be doing all the work later on. Yes,
Absolutely.
all right. Well, this has been extremely informative, and I think a lot of people will have lots of good insights to take with them going forward.
Thank you so much.
I wanted to ask, just as a wrap up here, what would you say is the most important piece of advice, is like to someone, to a business approaching this digital transformation project? What is the key word of wisdom you'd want to leave them with?
That's a hard question to answer. There's so many dimensions to it. No, I think one thing to consider is that, first of all, they have to know what they want from this cognitive transformation, and in many cases, it's not an option anymore, because there is a competition, and if other similar businesses, they are using AI for making better and smarter decisions, data-driven decisions, and they basically are able to use data from different parts of company and make cross-functional revenue streams. So when it comes to competition, I think everybody understands that it's kind of not an option anymore. They have to harness the power of data, and they have to turn it into actionable insight. But what they need to understand is that what they need to understand and to make decision about is where to start. What are the business values that they want to start with? They want to start with, and also they have to understand that it requires this journey requires some kind of exploration. So they have to be patient with this exploration phase. Sometimes they start somewhere, but it might take some time to understand what is the best model and how best deploy this digital and cognitive transformation that is best useful for their company and business.
Yeah. So in short, not engaging is not an option, and two, take your time. It will be a journey, basically.
Yes, that's right. That's a good summary.
Good. That's amazing. Well, thank you so much, Nasim. This has been really, really interesting, and I hope that we'll get some interesting follow-up on this from the people listening that we can get back to you with.
Thank you so much. It was great discussing with you, and thanks for having me here.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, buddy.
Bye-bye. Bye.